Chris Childress, and I know Chris is up. I saw his name up there. And let's try and get Chris's opinion on some of let's let him introduce himself and what his background is, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the technology that's available for, I want to call it decontamination because I'm a military guy. We use that word a lot, but basically mitigating viruses in the environment and what kind of technology we have for that. So Chris, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So we're a fairly new company. Pacific UVGI started in April. The reason we started was basically to mitigate COVID, if you will. I think when COVID came out in March, I mean, it came out sooner than that, but in March when it really hit the islands and whatnot, and in my industry, really got hit hard. I owned two businesses before Pacific UVGI, and one of them is an electrical business. And that kind of mirrored the other business, which is Twilight Audio, which we were doing large events. I'm a system integrator by trade, went to school for IT. I do a lot of smart home controls, security, network management. But with the hit of COVID, my industry really got hit hard. So I reached out to my friends that I worked with, business professionals in disinfecting. My wife's a ER nurse at 4 different hospitals on the island currently. And, we collaborated and say, hey, this COVID thing is serious. Like, what can we do to kill it? And I wasn't even trying to pad it. You know what I mean? I really wanted to make an impact of killing it. So my wife mentioned that what the hospitals were doing for many years, and it's not new technology on their behalf, where they were saying COVID was being killed or what they were doing in the hospitals was they were disinfecting rooms, the operating rooms, for C. diff, which is a bacterial-line substance that's very common in operating rooms. But she's like, the hospitals have been implementing these UVC lighting in the operating rooms and how effective they were, and they were the premier disinfection method that, all the hospitals she's worked at, and she's from Chicago. So she worked in Chicago, Hilo, but, Hilo has a very small hospital system there, but here she works at 4 different ER hospitals, but she's like, it's very effective. So the more we dug into UVC, I jumped on a product right away, and the more we dug into UVC, we found how effective it was. But it was still new to the commercial market and, that we are in today. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Sorry, we're about wearing a mask too. I'm in my warehouse. I have employees running around right now. But so yeah, the more we dug into UVC and how effective it was, I jumped on a product, but the product that we jumped on wasn't really safe for the everyday user. So the more we dug into research for about a month, we found out there was a company called Puro Lighting. And Puro Lighting at this time, when we reached out for a dealership with them and partnerships that we can work with their products and being able to promote it in Hawaii, they're in talks with New York City subway stations as far as implementing their products. New York City reached out to Puro Lighting as well and said, hey, we would love to implement your products in our daily disinfection methods, but we have to we want to test your products on a third-party perspective, even though they already had third-party verification. So what Puro did is they worked with MIT in New York City, and once all the verification products went through, then New York, was 100%, excited about what Puro Lighting was doing. So they started implementing their light fixtures in the New York City subway stations for disinfecting. So basically that's where I'm at today, where I just wanted to talk to you and show you what products where Puro Lighting is coming from. And they've been in the industry for about 7 years prior to this, providing UVC light bulbs for disinfecting. So I'll just quickly skim through this because I know everybody has a full day. If any of you want me to send this over to you in an email blast later, I can do that. So what UVC is, in the short sentence, is that it's a light range. As you can see in the far left here, it operates in the germicidal range, meaning that it kills COVID, influenza, SARS, just about any bacteria and everything. UVC is 99.9% effective on killing. It's 75% more effective than any disinfectant method, meaning spraying or any fogging method. If anybody has any questions, please jump ahead. Anyway,
I had one quick question there, Chris, and that's you mentioned that some previous technologies you looked at weren't safe. And I know that, you know, there's UVs related to skin cancer and things like that, depending on what level it's at. What is it about the former technology that you looked at made it really unsafe, and what is it about the Puro that actually makes it safe?
So the first light fixtures we purchased, basically to operate these units, we have to put a full-on PPE on, meaning like full Tyvek from head to toe with a hoodie. To operate the light, which was a wand, you would have to wear green arc welding, because the light is so bright, arc welding glasses, a full face shield, rubber boots, and gloves to operate this. We started off disinfecting homes that were COVID positive. But like I said, we didn't feel comfortable selling this product. So we were looking for a product that we could possibly sell. And what Puro Lighting did was they took what hospitals used to do is purchase machines that were $100,000 to $150,000 range. You know, they rolled out these UVC machines with big bulbs on them, you know, and disinfecting rooms. But what Puro Lighting did was they simplified that by just creating a light fixture that can disinfect and flashes, and then they put motion detectors on them as well as timers. So because the effectiveness of UVC is very dangerous to humans or any living organism, I would say, because of how bright the light is, Puro Lighting put motion detectors. If someone walks in the room, the light will turn off, and timers, meaning so once you start the machine, you have 5 minutes to leave the room before it turns on, and it flashes for about an hour. So we found a product that was a lot safer for commercial use, for install or mobile, you know, applications, so that they could, you know, be more effective than wearing a full PPE outfit. So if you go to my website, I actually have a video on that, you know, that process that we originally were going through. So this is a lot easier on my staff, as well as anybody purchasing the product. But so here's the value of ultraviolet light, as you see here on this slide: MRSA, E. coli, C. diff, as I talked before, SARS, noroviruses.
It's Susie. In our wastewater treatment plants, they use UV light. How is this different in technology?
So UV is ultraviolet, and to understand UV.
No, the wastewater treatment plant uses UV. So I'm just wondering what the difference is with Puro versus what they already use for many years to kill all of this.
See, I don't know if you mentioned UV, I don't know if those lights actually operate in a UVC range. They could be operating in a range within UVA or UVB. So that's just probably a product spec sheet that we would have to take a look at to see what light frequency that fixture uses. So when you say UV, all UV is not the same.
The city and county wastewater, and then there's a federal wastewater treatment plant. If it would be interesting to know what the difference is.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You say UV, is it UVA, UVB, or UVC, or all three?
When they gave me tours of those treatment plants, they just said UV light. They didn't tell me what the different different alphabets were that you mentioned. But I just wonder, with a lot of our facilities that have used it, maybe people are not aware that they've been using it for years. So it would be interesting to know what they use, which has been effective for years, viruses and bacteria.
Yeah, Susie, the UV systems that you talked about have been used in aquariums and all kind of things, fish tanks. They don't necessarily go directly. I mean, a lot of times you see the UV light in an aquarium, but like in water purification systems, they isolate the UV into the pipeline, so it's not being exposed outside where people could be hit by it, or but it's just basically like a little tunnel that has a UV light in it, and the water flows through that, and the time that it's there, it gets exposed to the UV. So
Yeah.
that's one of the differences in the system.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm interested to know exactly, what light output those fixtures that you're mentioning in the sewer rehabilitation projects are, operating. I used to do CIPP work for about 10 years, which is cured in place piping and sewers. I worked for a company called All Line. Before I jumped into the electrical side of things, owning a business and stuff like that. So I'm familiar with sewer rehabilitation and relining sewer pipes and what they were doing. But like I said, I'm not too sure exactly what product specs are being offered or which is being used by the state. So yeah, it's very important if you're going to be using UV and you're trying to kill viruses and bacteria, that the light definitely have to reach the light spectrum of UVC, which is a shorter wavelength and more effective. There's a lot of misinformation right now being pushed out, in the media and whatnot, retaining about UVC. And in short, and I explain this to everybody, is that the sun produces UV rays, right? UVA, B, and C, but because of the Earth's atmosphere, UVC gets blocked out. So what we do feel every day just walking outside now is the rays of UVA and UVB light spectrum. We don't feel the rays of UVC.
Mm-hmm.
So to make sure, people say UVC or UV, you really have to make sure that all light bulbs or any types of fixtures that are being offered to disinfect, it really has to reach the light spectrum of UVC.
Thank you.
I'm just gonna fast forward this.
And just a quick note here, Phyllis put up on chat a link to the wastewater systems that has more details on what they use in their system. So you might want to just Google that or look it up. Thanks, Phyllis.
So basically, Pure Lighting, like I said, they use UVC lighting, and they just basically installed their lights in different fixtures, as you see here. Some are installed in this upper right here. These other Sentries over down here are the mobile units. Depending on your square footage of your room, and it really depends on how many light fixtures you'll need for total coverage. I'll just quickly scroll through this. Pure lighting products on the front lines, as you can see in the medical, schools, subway stations, office workspaces, municipal and fire police stations. Lab proven results. Of course, that's important. Any product that you purchase nowadays, third-party verification is huge. You just don't want to just take. I'm not trying to be a sales guy here and be like, just push one product. So understanding third-party verification is very important in anything you purchase right here. So current disinfection practices, I think we're all aware of this. So I mentioned earlier that I purchased fixtures before. The fixtures I purchased were these low pressure mercury vapor bulbs here, which are very dangerous to use for me as far as just because all the PPE required and the exposure that my employees were having. So this post xenon bulb flashing here, which flashes is what Pure Lighting has moved to, which they found is the most premier disinfection method for their light bulb usage. More information on UVC, goes A and B. As I talked before, what hospitals were using before for the disinfection operating rooms were these huge robotic style of rolling in fixtures, maintenance costs. They talk here financial costs, $75,000 to $140,000. I technically haven't found anything $75,000. Everything I saw was in the $100,000 to $150,000 range. Before stumbling across Pure Lighting, of course, the technology has been around since the 1960s with the pulse xenon bulb. This is the type of fixtures that Pure Lighting is pushing out for the installed side, the Hilo 1 and the Hilo F2. Mentioned before, coverage areas, depending on your square footage, 10 by 10 area, how many fixtures you'll need to cover an area. And these are their mobile products.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
What is the comparison between using this kind of disinfection and using the chemicals? Um, and what's it like going into places where you said you've done homes which had COVID-19? Can you like tell us what it's like going into those places and disinfecting them?
Okay. The difference in just walking in homes. If we walked into an emergency site or a hazmat, we basically mention is because it's a COVID situation where it's like we turn the light on and we disinfect the outside of the home before walking inside. The lights that we're using could kill COVID in 1/5 of a second at 4 to 6 inches away of this swiping method that we use. It's very cumbersome to use the products that we had before compared to now. We provide these Sentry M1 and M2s where depending on, walking into someone's home and having, furniture, or, just furniture in the home and other things that can block lights and create shadows, we may put up multiple of these fixtures from different angles so that when we disinfect a room or a home that the shadow, we try to eliminate any shadow so there's total coverage from all the lights. I'm sorry, what was your first question that you asked?
Oh, and what's the difference between this and the chemicals that people use for disinfectant?
Well, chemicals are what, and here, sorry, let me pull it back a little bit forward. So while we were getting and working with the disinfection company and starting Pacific UVGI, we were getting a remediation license. And what we were finding is that a lot of these chemicals that were being offered were very dangerous to human consumption, even if you're able to breathe it. But we also found out that the chemicals being used was deteriorating fabrics, and they would be voiding warranties of, like, if you're disinfecting carpets or upholstery or anything like that. And the more studies that we learned through recent findings, because the information is always changing, right, in remediation work or disinfecting work, that UVC lighting was 75% more effective than spraying chemicals, which was more time consuming, because after you sprayed chemicals on, surfaces and whatnot, you would have to go back and clean it up. And compared to foggers being used. And the latest information we found out with foggers, it technically doesn't disinfect surfaces. It only disinfects the air. So it's not effective on surfaces. So yeah, UVC is just 75% more effective than any other cleaning method and safer.
Hey, Chris, this question is probably more for Derek, who wasn't on, but could this system be used in air conditioning systems inside the ducting, say, where you're not exposed to the light directly, but as the air passes through a section of the air handling equipment, you could actually expose it to these UVC lights and purify the air?
Correct. As I explained to Michael too in previous conversations, that the news media has pushed out that talked about how HVAC systems help spread viruses and bacteria and COVID. And what I was explaining to Michael is that talking to my HVAC companies that I work with was that UVC or UV lighting was implemented in 1/3 of all HVAC systems on the island, meaning that it was installed at the output of the AC system. The problem with COVID and stuff is that if you have someone that is infected, walks into a building, coughs, which has never been done to this point with HVAC system, is that now companies should be installing UVC lighting at the air filters, because if someone coughs in the building and that air gets circulated through a building or a system, that's what actually helps spread the virus, with the infection rate being so high that it is. So
that's why I was wondering, since they're using hotels now to have people stay in them, I don't know if they have the actual equipment to not spread the disease.
Well, that's exactly. So that's the one thing that's great is what Pure Lighting reached out to us and said, hey, normally we don't work with startup companies, but the fact that you own an electrical company, you can help install our products and HVAC systems at the air filter, which has never been done in past history, you know what I mean? Because to help mitigate the infection rate at the air filter. So that's a huge step. That's information, that just came out in March as well.
Has that been conversation been had with all the hoteliers that are participating?
We reached out to a lot of the hotel leaders, Kelly Sanders over at Alohilani and whatnot. And, with the impact of COVID, everybody just put a lot of things on pause, and we're trying to figure out what to do. I don't currently know anybody actually providing UVC services with the right type of bulbs, like I've showed you folks in the earlier slide with those 3 types of bulbs that are being offered that are true UVC, and have enough light output to be effective. So I haven't seen any company do that yet. I mean, I've worked with Ecolabs and talking with them, and they don't even have products out right now either that are in the UVC range to be effective.
And I'm concerned about all the employees now that will be subject to that.
Well, now there's hotels in Waikiki. I mean, I saw another news report today. I think it's called the Pacific Hotel. They've already started housing COVID patients. And personally, guys, my brother's got COVID. So he tried getting into that Pacific Hotel, and they were telling him they were booked up. So I think I saw the news report today that in Hawaii that they're trying to open up another hotel that caters to COVID patients. Especially if they don't have anywhere to go, their family doesn't want to take them in because they're scared of the pandemic or the virus, Yeah. So.
And this is Howard Wigg. Let me chime in, Susie. With the Energy Office and Hawaii Energy, we put on recently a webinar on UVC lighting, and it included Puro and an Arrival product. Mm-hmm. And we did this in conjunction with the Waikiki Improvement Association. Mm-hmm. And there were a lot of hoteliers and engineers who cater to the hotels. So I'm hoping that made an impact, and I'm hoping they're installing this equipment as we speak.
Howard, maybe it would be good to contact the head of the Hawaii Hotel Association and the Lodging Association, mm-hmm. all those that have direct membership, that is the leaders and managers, mm-hmm. and also BOMA and other groups that work with condominiums, etc. All the multi-unit.
Yeah. Good suggestion, Susie. We will be offering another webinar soon, and that's a really good target audience.
Yeah, Howard, I know Hawaii Energy's reached out to Puro Lighting. I guess you guys are talking to the CEO of the company, which is a good thing. Mm-hmm. I was excited to hear that. So,
I have a question for Chris there. How long does the treatment last?
The light fixture itself, or depending on usage, but I mean, the treatment of the room is about 30 minutes to an hour.
No, I mean, once it's treated, how long does that treatment last?
I think to answer your question is how much foot traffic do you have? I mean, because Puro Lighting's products are very effective. They kill, they do its job. So to answer your question is how much foot traffic you have. Puro Lighting implements that, you do nightly disinfection, meaning if you have mobile lights or installed lighting, you run your lights every night for an hour.
Chris, after the site's been treated, though, if someone contaminates that surface, it could be recontaminated within minutes of the initial light exposure, correct?
Exactly. So then you would have to re-engage the light again. So, bus systems, any heavy traffic areas, you're going to have to do daily disinfection. I mean, it pretty much sums up the PowerPoint that I have. Like I said, I can forward this to anyone if you guys want to look further into this. So.
No, Chris, I appreciate your presentation, and that's really great. And I think Susie's point about, and Howard's point about getting it out in front of some folks who could integrate it into HVAC systems would be critical, because that heating, ventilation, air conditioning system is ubiquitous. And I mean, even in Hawaii with great trade winds, we still put air conditioning in all our buildings, and the air handling, and we need to find some way we can purify the air at least as it moves through, because we do know that the particles that the virus travels you know, is spread through basically droplets that are in the airstream or in the air. So that's why that part's critical. I think the point that Sydney brought up about, you know, how long does it last? Well, if you have a contaminated surface, it's going to recontaminate quickly no matter, you know, I mean, chemicals might stick there and be persistent for a little while, but even they're going to be recontaminated once the effectiveness of the chemical wears off in a few minutes or a few hours. But the ventilation piece looks like a target area for your technology.
All right.
Well, I tell you what, we'll probably have some time at the end if more questions come up